Hi, Adequah here, and this is my game Rabanaz. In this show, I'd like to take a little bit look at the history of the game, where it came from, where it was, and where it is now. So this is the current round as it is now. You'll see that. For like a shocking contrast, let's go back and look at one of the very early mock-ups. This is a very early mock-up of the game. You can see it's radically different now, but I actually did have this version of the game working. So a lot of the game was programmed in this direction. Now, as I started programming this, I started realizing that it had more potential than maybe I originally thought. There's a lot of, there's a lot I could do with it, and a lot I thought I could simplify and make it a really appealing game. And so at some point I thought, okay, it reads a really nice makeover. I think it's a good game. I think the mechanics good, but we gotta give it a good makeover. Initially, like this, obviously it was never gonna be this. I was intending on doing a glass-like display for interest, but then I don't know for what reason, it got switched to a steampunk type theme. But I think it works well with the machine, the mechanical aspect is that you're working with machines. These are vacuum tubes, there's a bunch of switches. And so that's where the steampunk aspect came from. And so then we switched over, and other things have changed as well. Perhaps the biggest change that ever happened is you see only one line of chips here in this preview line here. Whereas in the original one, you had a 4x6 grid. So in the original form of the game, when you dropped a chip, it would actually drop the whole row. Whereas now if you drop a chip, say I drop this one here, it's just one item that switches. You don't have a whole column of them. It's just one item. It comes from the preview and drops down there. And you have those ones. And if you submit a bunch of chips, it'll drop them all down as well. And let's just do that now quickly. That probably gave me way too much points to finish around. I didn't manage to finish around. Okay. So that was probably the biggest change. Again, the dropping from 4 rows to that. There are still remnants of that in the game. I've been cleaning them up. I cleaned one more up last month, so there's a lot of data structures in the game that are still grid-like as opposed to just a linear list of things. I think I got the most relevant one rid of it last month because it just complicated the game to have it there and support it. But hopefully it's coming. Okay. The thing that did survive, you notice the tubes here, they were there from the beginning. These were something that was always there. This was a core concept of the game, as was the multiple game colors, the chip colors. These chip color combinations were here right from the start. You can even see in the initial mock-ups here the Darius borders they had, and that's the borders here they have. These are still the same borders. There's a gold, there's a diamond. There is a fiddlestick version that showed up. But like the combinations of them, you'll see here I had the chips like the red, the 3 different colors, and the combinations. Those patterns went into the graphics here. You see at the bottom, they show the color combinations to help you remember which chips include which. So like the black one has all 3 symbols, and the orange one has 2 symbols, and the primary just have the 1 symbol. The white one has no symbols, but that was there right from the start. What is also gone is this progression display at the top. So the gold and diamonds just moved down here because they're with these other 2 items. But the actual progression is in the original versions, Rabanaz was going to be a linear progression. You do 3 levels of the boss, 3 levels of the boss, and then go on and keep going, and there'd be a limit and stuff. And it worked, but it wasn't interesting enough in my mind. So let me just finish this level here. We just do a few chips to get some more points because we don't need much more, but let's get a really good one just so we have a lot of points. So that was way over the target. I'm doing a debug run here, so I started with some fixed tubes. This is not a normal run, but let's take a look. I just go to the map. So this is what, we have a map now. This little progression thing here, which is a fixed linear progression with little pips showing you where you were, became this map. And the map I found was a really, well, first of all, it's nice, a visual addition to the game. The map has been simplified though. We had all these wires before, like the original mock-ups had all these nice wires and it looked fascinating. The problem was in the late testing, nobody knew what was going on. There's too many wires to so we stripped out all the wires, stripped it down, just put some highlighting, simplified the highlighting and get it down. If you're unfamiliar with it, the goal of the map is to get from here to here. In one of my other videos I mentioned this is one of the kind of unique aspects. There is kind of a maze-like quality to this. You can't get yourself lost. You always get it here. And technically this is one of the interesting parts to build. Is map generation is always fun. Is how do you build a map that has some interesting aspects to it, has items that are like kind of fixed lengths away. Like this one is always, I think, was it 12 or 15 steps away? There should be one always, plus or minus a couple. How to make the endpoints interesting. For example, upgrades, if upgrades end up in dead ends as opposed to awaited dead ends. So dead ends tend not to have uninteresting nodes. They've been swapped around. So lots of interesting stuff here. But the key thing is that this replaced this. So this is a major evolution of the game. There's a map. There is an intent to have a second map in the game, so you eventually get to a second map. We'll see where that goes and how it works. Map generation, a lot of fun. So I think this is a very great improvement to the game. It gives you a lot more sort of depth to what's happening. And you can see what's coming up. It's also not just that it's not linear, is that the progression is different. There's a plane node, there's an upgrade node, there's a mini boss, another plane, there's an upgrade, a mini boss, an upgrade, a cooling. There's a bunch of different things that are happening now as opposed to just the linear progression. Let's just pick one here. And so we go back to the level. The rest of this is about the same. So you have the target and current, which match up here, and you have like the chip scores here, these map down here, and one of them's up here. Move for clarity beside the thing that actually gives you points. The go button's the same. The calculator was this one, just for clarity, I think. And what came new in the game as well are the concept of fiddlesticks. I added these because I felt the player needed something one-offs to work a bit more. And, all right, what is this? The player needed some one-off options that they could hold over rounds to do when they needed an extra little push. And these come in the way of fiddlesticks. The most likely way is you can randomly find them in the game, but also I mentioned there's these chips here like this one that has a fiddlestick on it. When you play this chip, this border comes off and it gives you a new chip, and these have typical things like upgrading power. This is one of the new aspects, and I think it really rounds out the design. You will see this in other roguelikes in the form of one-use items or like potions or something like that. That's sort of the evolution of the main display. And the game was really just one display before, because when you had just that, it was one display. And so obviously we have all these other displays as well. If I go out of here in the main menu, we have all these other things like the settings. And another thing that came in the game is, this is a relatively recent one in the story, is that there was, as the game started having a lot of tubes, it's just too much. It's too much to start. And I started understanding why a lot of other roguelikes, why you just have basically gated releasing of features. It just to give the player a chance to understand some of the mechanics. You can't come into this game and have 100 tubes and 50 bad guys all at once. It's just overwhelming. So it's just, you should just regularly release these. So this is kind of the new thing that came into the game later, to sort of just face releasing of the things in the game. And the upgrades thing, though not shown here, I don't remember when this actually came into the game, but it was very, very early. Like, it would have been like the second scene here after this. So it was always one of the goals, was this upgrade scene where you choose to affect the randomness. So for each tube, you can say how often it comes up and how often it doesn't come up. It's not an exact number. It's more like increase it. This becomes more common, or does it become less common? Does it become less common? And this is actually a fairly key mechanic of the game for building runs. And this is actually one of the key motivators I had for the game. Like I say, it came very early, but it wasn't initial. But the moment I started playing, I realized I needed this. And so the motivation is here that in a lot of the roguelikes, one of the things that I think frustrates me sometimes is you're going for a very particular build and you're stuck with the random number generator. You just don't get the items you want. It just doesn't line up. I didn't want to completely lose the randomness. So what I did is I built this system where for each item in the game, or each tube, specifically just each tube, you can choose how often it comes up, or just the randomness. So like if you increase it, it comes up more often, you decrease it, it comes up less often. And this gives you a much better chance of achieving the build you want. It's not guaranteed, it's still random, but these steps are fairly significant in terms of the randomness, so it does make a big difference. The last bit of evolution we had in the game is really fresh right now, is when you go to start a game, there's going to be a screen of modifiers. This is just the mock-up here. Maybe we could show you a static screen of the other ones. And these are like making the game more difficult. You'll get to choose every time you beat the game with one of them on, you can add one more. And I think I'm going to go up to 20 of them. and they're going to make the game a lot harder. In the first versions of the game, you have nothing. You won't even see the screen in the initial version or the initial run you do of the game. You just skip over it. Once you beat it, you'll get this, and they're really hard. And as you push it, it's going to really require thinking a lot more about your build. With no modifiers, you can probably just buy a bunch of stuff and make it through the game at random. I think that's the key there. And that's just to balance it for new players to make sure that they have a chance that if not needed a game, they can finish it without needing a super build. But it gets progressively harder because I said once you win the game, more bad tubes get released as well. There's no way around that. So as you play another round, even if you don't enable modifiers, more things will be thrown in your way until eventually you release everything. And so that's currently where the game is. Trying to think of what's still missing here. We've got the progression, got the upgrades. Okay, I think the major thing that might come a bit later though, is that once you have these upgrades, we might have a screen where you can save and restore this. You just save and restore just for a build. It's like a profile. Just so you can test different builds at multiple times. And that's it for me. If you have questions on the development or anything works, please jump over to Discord and ask them. And stay tuned to this channel to watch for other updates, technical and high level. Thank you very much.